How's it, everyone? Welcome to another string review right here on OpenCourt. So I am still in Japan, so I felt like it was appropriate for me to pick up a Japanese string and test it for you guys. And today we are taking a look at a brand that I believe deserves to be mentioned up there with Yonex as one of the best and highest quality producers of tennis strings. What is that brand? Toalson. So maybe you guys have heard of Toalson, maybe you haven't, but the reason you probably haven't heard of them is because they do very little marketing outside of Japan. But they've been around for over 60 years and they've been producing tennis strings for a very long time. So they are a reputable company, and their strings, as you guys can see here, they say made in Japan. Toalson strings, I believe, are manufactured in Oita Prefecture here in Japan. And they make very high quality nylon multi-filaments as well as polyesters. Believe it or not, even if you've never heard of Toalson, you've probably used one of their strings before unknowingly, because if you guys have ever used Gamma strings, Toalson actually manufactures the strings for Gamma. They are what is known as an OEM, original equipment manufacturer. Gamma takes care of all of the marketing and advertising, and they just outsource the manufacturing of their strings to Toalson. Toalson makes the strings and Gamma sells them. They put them on the shelves labeled Gamma Livewire and TNT, Professional, whatever. So if you guys have used any Gamma strings, they were made by Toalson. Toalson also is the OEM for other string manufacturers as well. So if you guys are curious to learn more about the Toalson brand, I'll leave a link below to an excellent article that provides an in-depth description of Toalson by Perfect Tennis. Go click on that and give that a read if you guys are curious about Toalson. So on today's string review, we are specifically looking at a polyester string by Toalson called the Devil Spin. This string is actually pretty popular here in Japan. It can be found for under $10 in most online retailers, so it's a pretty cheap budget string, and it's known to be very durable and hold tension very well. It's a little bit on the stiffer side. So the cross section for the Toalson Devil Spin is very unique and interesting. It actually has these three raised ridges that come out from the side of the string, extending out from the center, the core. And these ridges grab the ball and assist in imparting spin. It also comes in 3 gauges, 120, 125, and 130 millimeters. And with the Devil Spin, you get your option of 4 different colors. If you guys can see up here, you actually get Black Devil, Red Devil, Blue Devil, and Yellow Devil. There isn't anything different in the manufacturing of the different colors, but as you guys know, the color of the string does matter when it comes to playability. Alright, so I got the Devil Spin strung up in my Head Boom Pro at 50 pounds in the mains and 48 in the crosses. I strung it a little bit lower because the Devil Spin is supposed to be a stiffer playing, more durability oriented string, so I want to be able to generate a little bit of power, so I strung it 2 pounds lower than my reference tension. Alright, so without further ado, let's get on the court and let's test out this Toalson Devil Spin. So I was very pleasantly surprised by the Toalson Devil Spin for a number of reasons, so let's get into the pros. First, this string was not as stiff as I thought it would be. The durability rating was pretty high, so I thought the Devil Spin would be a stiff string, but that was not the case. Although I wouldn't put it in the soft poly category, I felt the Devil Spin was more comfortable than I expected for a string that was touted for its durability. Comfort is not high on my priority list when it comes to strings, but it's nice to know I can play long matches with this string without worrying about my arm pain the next day. I was also surprised at the playability. I felt I could hit pretty much every shot in the book. This was especially surprising because I did not feel that the Devil Spin was a crisp and lively string. It actually felt a little more on the muted and dampened side, but for some reason the dwell time felt nice and responsive. I have a theory for why I think this is. Please forgive me if I'm way off base, but I believe the dwell time and response is good with the Devil Spin because of the string's design. Because of the outer raised ridges on the string, the ball hits the ridge first, then sinks into the inner layer coating before launching off, leading to that increased ball pocketing. The ridges are literally forming a pocket around the ball. That's my theory. Regardless of whether it's right, I can't deny that the string was responsive for something that felt more muted. I love that the string let me hit my angles, drops, lobs, and volleys with precision. I think I like the Devil Spin better from the baseline than at net. The combination of the ball pocketing and deader feel allowed me to swing with reckless abandon from the baseline. I especially liked it on my forehand returns. I like to keep a compact swing on my returns, but I still step in and accelerate, so I like something that won't sail my returns long, and the devil spin gave me exactly what I needed. Whenever my opponent hit a hard shot to my forehand, I could swing out and redirect the power without issue and the ball would stay in. Fast-paced rallies off the forehand wing felt effortless. Most importantly, I felt confident with my ground strokes even when my opponent ripped shots at me. I think both flat hitters and spin hitters would like the devil spin on their aggressive forehand cuts. The feel on forehands felt similar to Vocal Cyclone, except the devil spin just felt a little more responsive. The devil spin also shined on slice shots, particularly my backhand. My backhand slice, I like a string with good dwell time and snapback because I like to guide the ball along the swing path and send it to the corners low over the net. The added grip the devil spin puts on the ball allowed me to place slices deep into the corners or toward the sidelines, and the bite kept the ball low and skidding below my opponent's strike zone. I could follow my backhand slice into the net and force opponents to hit the next ball into my strike zone or up high for me to smash. My forehand slice doesn't have quite the same swing path, so I didn't feel the dwell time too much off that side, but I could still keep the ball low, especially when I had to run out wide for a defensive slice. I also liked that this string allowed me to disguise my drop shots. I could mix it up with deep skidding slices or hit a dropper that would die in the service box and my opponents couldn't tell which one I was going for. A string that allows me to play my deceptive game is always a pleasure for me. And lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the spin generation. This string is called Devil Spin, so I was expecting wicked levels of spin. Fortunately, I got that excellent spin generation from all shots. I touched on the biting slices earlier, but I also saw my aggressive ground strokes dipping low at my opponent's feet or diving inside the baseline. Kick serves are where I critique a string's spin potential most because I have to generate all that rotation with pronation, so it's sometimes difficult for me to generate spin without help from the string. The devil spin produces devilish kick serves. I saw my opponents reaching out with their backhands to return my serves. The slice serves also stayed low and away. I think the devil spin is a great control string overall because of the tight grip it puts on the ball, and aggressive swingers will appreciate that help. Now let's move into the cons of the Toalson devil spin. First, I was very surprised the first time I hit with this string because my first forehand I hit flew almost to the back fence. The launch angle when this string is fresh was ridiculously high, and I don't know why, but the first few hits during my warm-up, I saw the ball launching super high off my string bed and was landing past the baseline. Once the string settled in, the launch became a little more manageable, but I noticed throughout this playtest that I actually had to focus more on coming over the ball on my forehand so as not to send the ball flying long. Although I do believe this is a good control string, it might not be suited for players with a more vertical swing path because you might struggle with the high trajectory. Secondly, the overall power level of the devil spin is low. Aggressive hitters who like to rip the felt off the ball will rejoice when hearing this, but since my strokes aren't that caliber, I struggled to generate much of my own pace. This lack of power was especially noticeable on flat serves. I had a very low net clearance percentage on flat serves, and even when they went in, I could see my opponents weren't really struggling to return them. I couldn't hit penetrating flat serves, which meant I'd abandon the flat early in the playtest. Also, if I ever hit outside the sweet spot during a rally, I would hit sitters for my opponent to rip back at me. That is never a good feeling for me because I don't like having to play defense much. On volleys, I appreciated the control and spin, but I just couldn't punch the ball deep or hit past people at the net. I'm a serve and volleyer, and I had to work extra hard to punch back anything hit at my feet, especially on that first approach volley. If I hit off center, the opposing net player would punish me for my hanging volley. Overall, I want a string that has some pop, as that helps me to generate the pace that my body and skill alone are not capable of. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, the feel of the devil spin is pretty muted and dead. This didn't bother me as much as some other dead playing strings because the dwell time is actually quite good, so I could still hit my touch and angle shots, but I still want something that gives me a little more feedback, particularly on the ground strokes. Whenever I strike the ball, I want to feel that pop in my strings because that does wonders for my confidence. If you don't mind deader playing strings like Cyclone or RPM, you'd probably be a fan of this string. So the Toalson Devil Spin, who is it for? It's for players who want control, spin, and comfort and don't mind a slightly muted feel. I think flatter hitters may benefit more from the devil spin than more vertical swingers because I noticed such a high launch angle, especially when the strings are fresh. If you use a denser string pattern, I think that would mitigate the high trajectory, but this is also a low powered string, so be sure to bring your own power to the table. I think the devil spin could make a good cross string in a hybrid because the ridges aren't sharp so it won't saw into the mains, and by putting a more powerful string in the mains, you could extract a little more power from the devil. So my first venture into an actual Toalson string with a Toalson brand name on the package was really interesting. I think this is a good string, maybe not quite what I'm looking for because of the low power and muted feel, but this type of string is used by many players, so I know there are those who would benefit. I'm excited to try out more of Toalson strings in the future because they've been in business a long time, so obviously they know what they're doing, so keep the awesome strings coming, Toalson. Thanks for watching this review of the Toalson Devil Spin right here on OpenCourt. If you guys like this content, be sure to overhead smash that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you on an OpenCourt.